first thing, some of you guys know how to do this and some of you don't, but the first thing is to make sure that you guys know how to rename yourself, because that's one of the things that are important in the contest that we'll have to do is have kids rename themselves. So if you don't know how to do that, you go under participants and you put your cursor over top of your name, and there's the more button that comes up, and under more you hit rename and you rename yourself. So I'm going to have you do that, rename yourself now. So I just had you put your 3 initials and your birth date, so just the day that you were born, like whatever number. So if you'll go rename yourself, just so that everybody does know how to do that. So use your initials and the day that you were born and just rename yourself under there. These are the little things that will be important that kids know how to do. And so these can be kind of time consuming. That's like Mary Louise was saying for the practice, is that if the kids don't know how to rename themselves, that's just a challenge in itself. But hopefully that we can all get you guys to know how to do it, so then you can help other people. So I think everybody's got it but Shaylee. Shaylee, do you know how to do that?
I do now.
Beautiful. Okay, so just go get yourself renamed, then everybody's in there. Okay, so when we do the contest, just to try to keep there's integrity as much as we can around things. Does that make sense? So we will probably have kids even in the horse apology, dog skillathon, things like that, become a contestant number of something. Do you know what I mean? That will be assigned to them, so that we can just try to keep names off of there as far as integrity of the contest. So it might say in Livestock Skillathon, for example, we might say you into 1, and we could have 5 kids name you into 1. So we would know that that's team 1, right? Or that might say Albany 2, so then we know that that's Albany team number 2. So kids could have the same name, which would be super helpful for the moderators to know. So that's something as we go along that we will work through on those contests. So what happens is that I'm showing you screenshots because there's no way to show you like what I see on my end as the host. So some of this seems kind of crazy, but so that you can walk through it. So this is what then happens is under the participant list, and you guys can see this, is everybody becomes a number, just like on here. On here, this is reason orders. So this is our practice mini contest we did last night at my house, trying to get this so we could do screenshots. So here we just had, this was from the reasons order, and we had people become different names or whatever. So then they're run off their contested number. When you go to use your breakouts, I apologize if you guys know all this. We're just acting like you don't know anything because we have to record this, okay? So to build a breakout is that the host at the bottom of your screen has these little things called breakouts where the little 4 dots are, okay? When you select on a breakout, it pulls up the bottom screen there on the left, and you select manual. So what that means is that you get to decide who gets to move into those rooms, and also you decide how many rooms you want. So a couple things that are key important is that in this example we're going to do, we have 4 reasons, but if you had 4 reasons, you want to have 2 extra rooms. So the extra rooms become really important. So like in Emily's case, if she was building the breakouts for her exempt speaking, is that there's just these 2 extra floater rooms out there. And the reason why is because there's kids that get hung up in Zoom. And sorry, Zoom is just a computer program that has glitches. And so you can take kids and move them into those extra breakout rooms, and then get them moved back where they need to be. So it's kind of like your problem solver is those extra 2 breakout rooms that are just for problem solving. So always, I just can't say enough that you need to have 2 extra breakouts over top of however many rooms you need, okay? So in this example on the, I don't know if this is, on my side it's left, I don't know what it shows up to you guys, but where it says breakouts room 1 through 10. So I suddenly had, is that your right or left? Sure. It's left, okay. So on that example, we had 10 rooms. On the other example on the other side is the one I did last night, and we did 6 rooms, okay? So once you make your breakout rooms, they're just gonna say breakout room 1 through however many you have. What you then need to do is go rename them, and you do that by clicking right beside it. You can see where my arrow is, and right here, if you click on, roll your cursor over that, it'll come up and say rename. And then you click on rename, and then you can change those names to be whatever you want. So you would change them to the steers. So market steers, breeding heifers, we'll go through the example, whatever. For Emily, for example, in extempt, she might have it say junior extempt judges or whatever, or waiting room. It could say junior waiting room or whatever it is the map comes out to be. So you're going to make those rooms say whatever they have. So for Livestock Skillathon, we will have a breakout room for every team. So we would change these where they say Uinta Junior 1, Uinta Junior 2, Albany Junior 1, Albany Junior 2, which tells me that there is a team for each of those. So each team will have their own breakout room. And then on top of that, we'll have a breakout room where we'll have our judges waiting type of a thing. So you'll just rename those breakout rooms to whatever you want. So here in my example, I just showed on the left where I have steers, gilts, sheep, heifers, and then I have those 2 extra rooms, okay? One of the things that's important under options is that's at the bottom here. Under options, you always need to make sure that you have the button clicked that allows participants to return to the main session at any time. If you don't have that clicked, is the kids get stuck in those breakouts and then they can't return to the main waiting room. So we made that first glitch when we did our first round of practice sessions, is we didn't have that button checked. So then kids couldn't figure out how to get back out to the main room. So that's really an important little thing that is checked. And then obviously on these other options, you don't want to have those checked where as far as the breakouts are going to close and things like that. So those are important options that you need to have clarified. Then what happens is you're ready to assign people to move into the breakout rooms. One of the challenges is, if on this example, if you look down here where it says open all rooms is not an option, like it's not a hot button down here at the bottom, it shows up, but that's because you absolutely have to move somebody into the breakout before you can open your room. So in this example is that when I click assign, this brings up all the people that were in this contest. So these are all the devices that we had in the contest. So if you're starting off your contest to begin with, is for example, in a judging contest, is you would move your reason takers and your moderators in there. So this is your time to get them moved into the room before the kids do. In a like Livestock Skillathon, Horse Apology, in those contests, is you would literally assign, that might say instead of market steers, it would say Uinta 1, junior Uinta 1. Then you'd come over here and you'd pick the kids that say Uinta 1. And you would know that they're a team and they'd go in there. So then I would just click on whoever I want to go in that assigned room. And then once I assign one person, I can open rooms. I don't have to assign to every breakout at the same time, but I do have to assign one person to a breakout in order to open it. So in this case, I would, if Emily's case is doing extempt, is that she would have whatever it is, junior extempt 1, then she'd move her judge in there and then she can open it up, okay? One of the things that's important is you look at maps and figure out like where you need volunteers and stuff, is that we really are trying to abide by the volunteer guideline policies that we don't have adults in a breakout room by themselves. So I know it seems weird that that's why we have a moderator. So in each of your breakouts, you would have a judge and a moderator or a helper type thing, just so that it's just a protective factor. Who knows? I mean, this sounds crazy, but you would think nothing happens, but if you put an adult alone with a kid, it would be no different than in a room.
It's also a good thing because sometimes somebody will get kicked out. So if the judge gets kicked out, then the moderator's still there, or vice versa.
Yes, that has happened more than once. The other thing is that we, like in the judging contest, we had the moderator write the scores down as well as the judges, because what happened, sorry, I have a hair in my face. What happened is the kids get into like the reason room and they just automatically start reasons and drilling away. And then what happens is like, then they would leave and then the reason taker was so in tune to listening to reasons that they got out. So when we did our practice sessions, some of my reason takers sent me a note and said, I don't know, the blonde haired junior looked like she was only about 10 years old, got a 40. And I'm like, I don't even know who that is. Like I had no idea at all. And that is a true story that really did happen more than once. So that's why we learned that it's really important that we have the moderator record scores as well as the person taking reasons. And even like Emily, in your case, I'm using you because you're on Emily, with the extempt speaking is you might even want 3 in there. Like we'll look at that roadmap I have for you, but you might even want like a timer in there that's just responsible for timing, as well as a person that's the moderator helper, as well as your judge. I think what I did learn at the EWC contest is that if you have one person doing too many jobs, it becomes more challenging than you think. Like you think keeping time should be something simple. Oh no, like I couldn't keep time and manage the class. Like I couldn't, like I just couldn't do it. So as you think through that roadmap of volunteers and where you have them, those are things that are important. Okay, questions up at this point? Anybody? Okay. So then this is what it looks like, just so you, a couple screenshots here so you can see if you haven't used breakouts, that on the left-hand side, it says unassigned. So those are all the contestants that are in there that have not been assigned, that says unassigned, they're still in the main room and they haven't been in a breakout yet. The ones down below where it says market steers breeding gilts, I have assigned somebody to those rooms, but they're still gray. If you see they're gray, that means there's nobody in the room. So they've been assigned in there, but they haven't accepted the invitation to move in there yet, okay? It versus the one on the bottom where the green is here's an example of the little green shows me that somebody's in those rooms. So in this example is in the top, I've invited my reason takers to be there, but they haven't accepted on the bottom. Now the reason takers, for example, have moved in there. So you know who's in there is they have a green hot button, means that they're still in the room, okay? That's kind of important as you move along that you understand that. This example then just shows it where, like on the top left is that I have, like in this example, a reason taker and a moderator, or a reason taker and a kid. When we did our practice session last night, I didn't have really enough people to have a reason taker and a moderator and a kid. Like we didn't have enough volunteers to make this work. But so in this top, if you look up here, everybody's green means they're in breakouts except for the two in the top that are unassigned. They haven't been assigned to it. They're kind of waiting out there, getting ready to be moved into a room. The one on the bottom is now the next step is, this is where, so in this example, I know we're breaking the policy, but we only have one reason taker because I didn't have enough. So in this example on the bottom is under market steers, you have your reason taker in there, and then there's two kids that have been in there and already given those reasons. Okay, so they're waiting to go to their next set of reasons. Under breeding gilts, you have a reason taker in there and a person, D1, that has already given their reasons and they're waiting to go to the next room. And then under breeding heifers, same way, you have a reason taker and two kids. Under market sheep, this shows me that I don't have anybody in queue, like nobody waiting in that room that had already given their reasons and ready for the next set. So what's beautiful about this is if you guys now notice though, on the top of this, my unassigned is gone. So this is where you guys that helped me on the practice series we did when I kept telling you people were gone and I couldn't figure out where they were and why I couldn't see them, is that once you've moved them out of assign and put them in these breakouts, they, even when they come back to the main room, is that you can't see them. They don't show back up under assigned, and that becomes a challenge. So a couple things is that you just have to keep watching your participant picture list over here and you can see them, they're there, but you can't see them under unassigned. They've already been to a reason room. So one of the things that, Emily, we might want to practice, for example, is that when Jesse Hadfield did this in Utah, they took everybody and assigned them into a waiting room. So everybody got moved into a waiting room, and then they moved from the waiting room into the room where they were gonna go. And then they moved themselves back to that waiting room so that kids were always in their waiting room so you could see them, versus on this example where you can't see them. And so it took me a long time to figure out like what happens to them, if that makes sense. But what's beautiful about this is I know that there's a reason order. So for example, if market steers rolls to breeding gilts rolls to market sheep rolls to breeding heifers, I know under market steers either AA1 or DB2 is going to be my next person going into gilts. D1 will be my next person going into market sheep, and then whatever after market sheep, there's nobody in queue there, is ready to go down here to breeding heifers, if this makes sense. And then breeding heifers rolls up to market steers. So it really helps you because you really don't have to have them in that unassigned group because you just work now off of your breakout and you know who they are, is ready to go up next. Okay? That makes, go ahead.
I got a question for you, Dawn.
Sure.
So if you had a waiting room, would it show up here in this list?
Mm-hmm. You would rename it and it would be at the top and it'd just say waiting room, you know? So, so what they,
the reason I'm asking is because we're doing a virtual game night tomorrow night, and we're going to have multiple breakout rooms, multiple games. So, and then they'll be able to switch. But if I can't see them, you know, maybe I'm thinking maybe it'd be good to have a couple waiting room or two so I can still see them.
That is correct. What does happen, just so you know, is that if somebody comes in, so say you've started your game night, for example, Okay, and then you have somebody that comes late and joins in, they automatically get dumped in this unassigned. So
Okay.
just know that. Does that make sense? Is that they
But
automatically get
unassigned shows up though, right?
Yeah, yes, exactly. If you click on this little button where it says join right here,
Uh-huh.
I wish I would have taken that screenshot last night and I didn't, but if I hit join, is that I can move into that room too, just so you know that that's what that button's for. And then if I click where it says AA1, if I click on AA1 here, it gives me an option to move AA1 wherever I want to move them.
Oh,
Does that
okay.
make sense? So I scroll over, I wish I took that screenshot, that's the one I missed last night. But if I did AA1 and I put my cursor over here, it's gonna bring me an option and I can move AA1 into Gilt's, Market Sheep. Heifers are one of these extra rooms down here. So that's how
okay.
you move them, right? So if I wanted, I know Market Steers goes to Market Gilt's here, I want DB2 is gonna be my next one in the reason order. It needs to go to Gilt, so I'm gonna put my cursor on DB2 and it's gonna give me an option and I move it to Gilt.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, so but I think the waiting room is not a bad idea. I think in this reason order it works great because what happens is kids get moved into the reasons and there's no reason to ever take them back to the waiting. Does that make sense? They just keep on rolling. So it makes total sense. I wonder about, like in Emily's case, is if she would want a waiting room so they know go back to the waiting room type of a thing. So, you know, where you're doing a different type of a contest. So, okay, here's another example. I just took a couple more screenshots so you can see this, just where I mixed them around. So here's another example on the left is I have two kids that are waiting in queue in Market Steers and they'd be ready to go to Gilt's. And then under this Gilt example, there's 3 kids waiting that should go to Market Sheep next. And then I have 1 Market Sheep person waiting that's ready to go to Heifers. And then under Heifers, I don't have anybody waiting, right? Like we're caught up to date on Heifers. So that reason taker in that example sitting there waiting for a kid because I don't really have anybody to roll back. Does that make sense? And then the same thing, it's just another example on the other side. It's the same thing. Okay, questions about this before I move on? This really does make a lot of sense when you actually do it. Do you know what I mean? It's scary at the beginning, but it makes a lot of sense when you do it. Go ahead, Emily.
Dawn, all of the participants where it says not joined in parentheses, they're sitting in the main Zoom room together? Is that correct?
So
Okay.
you can see their pictures, kind of like you see your participant pictures as you see them there. They're just waiting to be moved back. Because what they did is, you know, when you were helping in the practice and they went into the breakout rooms and they were done with their reasons, then at the bottom they say they want to go back to the main room, then they go back to the main room. All it just doesn't do, what I thought it would do in the beginning when I first started learning this is I thought it would dump them back into this assigned, right? But it doesn't. It just dumps them back into the main room and you can see their picture, so you know they're there waiting, but it doesn't put them in an assigned thing, which for reasons, this is really beautiful, right? Like it makes a lot of sense because of the fact you just work off the screen because you know who's next in queue. What maybe happens my worry a little bit is if you're doing a different type of a contest. So some of the advantages might be, like Emily, if you can think through your example of extent, you would have all the kids come to your unassigned, you'd give some instructions, right? And they could sit there and say unassigned, and then you could move them, for example, they have whatever, I don't even know off the top of my head, 10 minutes to prepare their speech. I don't even know what it is. Does that make sense? But you could move them into a room that says prep, right? And then you could just move them into a prep room and there could be a volunteer in there that could help them answer questions. And then that person in the prep room could be the one that spins their wheel. They get to select their topic and then they stay in that prep room for 10 minutes, right? Or whatever long they have to write their speech. And then once their 10 minute is up, then you would move them from prep room into one that says whatever junior judges. And then you move them in with their judges. Does that make sense? So in your case, you could put them all in a waiting room or you could have them in that unassigned, and anybody in assigned you knew hasn't been to the prep room to even draw their topic yet. And then from their topic, they'd move into a judge's room. The same way would go like if you could visualize livestock skill-a-thon or horse apology, because I know like Shaylee's on that's going to help with that, is that kids would be in unassigned, and then after we give instructions, they're going to move into individual team breakouts. So we'd move all the Uinta kids into a breakout that says Uinta 1, because that would be their junior, and then I'd move all the Albany kids into Albany 1 or all the Converse, whatever, because you'd have the breakout rooms then would say whatever team number they are. And then what we do is we're going to move the person that's asking the questions into the rooms. So in that case, instead of moving the kids around a whole bunch, because there's a lot of kids to move, is the person asking the question. So if somebody's doing livestock breeds, for example, they could go under Uinta and they'd ask all the livestock breeds. And then when they're done, then they could go to Albany and ask the livestock breeds. So the people that are asking the questions will be the ones that get to move the rooms instead of the kids moving. Does it make sense? Okay. I just put this in there just as an FYI in case you didn't know, is that you can send this down here at the bottom of your breakout thing. It says broadcast message to all. This is where you can send a message to all the breakout rooms, but just know that it has to be the same message and it goes to every breakout. So what I ultimately wish, like this, if I could rewrite Zoom, I always say that, if I could rewrite Zoom, right? Like I wish I could choose what breakout I wanted to send a message to. So for example, you know, like when we were doing that practice one, is I wanted to send a message to Mary Louise, for example, and say, just wait, I have kids that are coming, you're gonna wait a little while. There's no way to do that. You have to move yourself in there and tell Mary Louise verbally, I'm gonna, whatever, you stand there waiting, you're gonna be there, because I can't send a message just specifically to a breakout, but you can send a generic broadcast to everybody.
So when you say that you can move yourself into that breakout room, and then you can move yourself back out, and it doesn't move everybody else back out, it just moves yourself?
As the host, yeah, you can move in and out of those as many as you want. So
okay.
I had to do that quite a few times when we had some problems. Does that make sense? Is move into a breakout and help somebody and then move back out. There's only one little glitch, and I'll show you the only downfall to do that in just a minute. I'll show you. But yeah, it works really good. And so that's a way to go in there and talk to your reason takers or your judges. Like, so for example, if Emily needed to go in and talk to her junior judges and, you know, have a conversation with them, then she could move herself in there, talk to her judges, and move herself back to the main room. So it does work really well. And that's how you do that with this little join thing on these, is that's how I would go into those rooms as the host.
Cool.
So I'll show you the downfall to it though. So this is the sharing, and this is where the downfall is. So this is how we did the reason order. So kids knew how to go into the next room, so kids could stay on top of it, and this is beautiful. So I, as the host, share my screen, and this is the reason order. So this AA1 kid, well, let's use this, CA1 in market steers, knows that the next set of reasons they gave was CA1 is right here. So they give breeding gilts, and then the next set of reasons would be market steers. Then the next set of reasons was the fourth set you can't see that's under my little thing here, right? So then as the kids went into the reason room, gave their reasons and they came back. Then when they came into the main room, I told the kids, please tell me where you were at and your number. So then when they figured it out soon, the kids did really good. So then they came back and said, okay, I was in breeding gilts and I'm BC3, I'm done. And then at that point, we knew to mark them off, okay? And these little red marks is just through annotations. On the top of your screen, there's a button called annotations. And then you can just write on here on your screen and mark them off. So like right now, I can go into annotations and draw a little, but I just did that like that. Does that make sense? So that's the way that you can mark them off. I will tell you that you're gonna laugh because I did lots of Zooms prior to COVID, right? And I didn't know how people were drawing on my screen. Yeah, like that, who just drew on my screen, right? So poor Caleb Boardman was teaching a class and they drew everything, marshmallows, wrote marshmallows on it, like everything. And I couldn't figure out like how that was happening, but you do have a setting in, a thing in your settings in the beginning that you can turn off annotations so your participants can't use them. So if you don't already have that in Zoom, I would highly advise you do that, but right like now, because they drew all over poor Caleb's pig. Anyways, I just couldn't figure out how that was happening. But the challenge is you have to turn them on and turn them off. So that is a little bit of the challenge, is if you turn them off, they're off for everybody. Do you know what I mean? Type of a scenario. So, so this works really good to do that. And then you can erase like whoever drew my smiley face, and then I just erased the diamond. So the annotations is a beautiful thing if you've never used them. I had never ever used them, didn't even know they existed until COVID-19. So the downfall though, I just told you, Mary Louise, about going into your thing, is when you go into to a different thing or you stop sharing your screen. Like if I stop sharing my screen and this was me that was keeping track of these, when you start sharing your screen, it erases all your annotations. So I figured that out the hard way in the middle of the EWC contest. So I was like this, and I had people marked off, and we were doing great, and we were on track, and everybody knew where their reasons were. And I had to leave to go back to help Amber in the junior thing. So I left, which was fine because I had Debbie as my moderator to stay there, and I left. And when I came back, all my annotations were gone. So then we didn't know where we were at in the reason order. So that's another important role of your moderator in the host in that main room, is your moderator have a hard copy of this, and they're keeping track on a piece of paper for you as well. So that if you lose your screen, you get kicked out, you have to leave, any of those things that you lose your annotations, then you can come back and get it back up to speed. The kids, for the kids taking reasons, this was super beneficial for them, because then they could know I have two people, like the CA1 knows that she has two people before she's going to give her next set of reasons. And that was super, super helpful. But when I lost it and didn't have it for a while, because I couldn't figure out, well, we didn't have a backup copy, so I didn't know who had given reasons and who hadn't, is that became a little bit of a challenge. So that was a learning moment. So
Is there any other downfall that you know of, though?
no, that's the big downfall. But if you have a moderator helping you, you know what I mean, so that you know where you're at in reasons room, so then when you go back to share your screen, you just cross them off and get caught up, then you're okay. So I don't think there's any other downfall to go in there and join except for that shit.
So, but could you make the moderator a co-host and it not go, I mean, and they keep sharing their screen so that it...
Yeah, that would be the ultimate best, is if the co-host would share their screen and be in charge of this. So that if you were the person that had to leave or go, if you're the troubleshooter, that you're not the one in charge of this, that's a beautiful thing. You are correct. Yes. So that's a good thing to know if you're using this. So, okay, questions about this? I was just gonna say one more thing. This is also what you see from your screen, just so you know. If you're sharing a screen, you're gonna see, you get to see what you're sharing, and then you get to see those participants, Emily, like up there at the top. I can see that AC3, let's give an example. AC3, is that a good example? Maybe not. D, no, I don't have a great example up there. Oh, wait, DB. Of course, I don't have an example. But so, for example, I can only see 4 up there, but I should be able to see this DC3 number that down here where it says not joined up here in this picture. So I know they're just sitting there waiting to go into the next order. Okay. Any other questions to this point? Nope. Okay, I think that's all I have for this part of the Zoom part. And sharing and how the breakouts are going to work. Is there questions? Anybody have questions about that? Any complications? I know lots of you guys helped with the contest too. I know Megan helped, Emily, you guys that helped too. Amber? No? Okay. One thing I will say is that if you're sharing an order, like Emily, I don't know if I can do this. Let's see, let me share my screen really quick. I was just going to say that Emily, you could, for example, have like, you could share an order of like, even the people that are in order to give their speeches, for example, you could have an order here too, where you could share your screen so that they would know, does that make sense, that Don Sanchez is first, Emily second, Mary Louise. So you could have a reason order here. One of the things that is important up here where it says market steers, reading guilds, market, whatever, is make sure that those columns do say what they have. Like I think I failed on Amber, the instructions when Amber's on, but I think I failed to tell her to change the names of those columns. So when I sent this reason order to her, it just said whatever, column 1, set 1, set 2, set 3, or whatever, and then the kids didn't know what set 1 meant, set 2 meant. Does that make sense? So even on, like, if you were doing speeches, you could say that whatever, junior 1, and this is your order, or senior 1, or whatever, however. Does that make sense? Just so that the kids can follow along. Like, you feel like you shouldn't have to be that explicit, but I guess it's a minor little point that's kind of important. Okay.
And it would have been helpful in that to have their names too. Only because
right.
I know that numbers are associated with how you score them, but, and that's how I was doing it. Okay. C1, Timber Eckley, you're going to go give your use reason so that they like could hear it all. That was just part for me to make sure they understood to have where they were going, I guess. So, and I was having to look at a couple different papers and it worked, but having it up there or on my version of it would have been better. So on the person calling it, your helper.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great comment, because the kids don't pay attention to their little numbers, right? Like they don't pay attention. So when you say SBH, are you ready for guilt, right? They're like practicing reasons and not paying attention, which is fine. So Amber's right. Like, so I would say that I'd say CH1, Don, are you ready to go? And I just have the piece of paper in front of me that said CH1 is Don and whatever. Does that make sense? So I knew that, and that was kind of one of those things that was probably Amber jumped into this like whole front feet and everything. Does that make sense? Is I probably didn't have those pieces of papers in front of her to say those are important little pieces of paper, because they are, so that you have that. So you're right, Amber. So when you holler their name, they pay attention versus when you just say a number type of it. So, okay, questions about any of that? Okay.
When you say waiting room, Dawn, you don't mean like the literal Zoom waiting room. You just mean like a breakout room that you've named waiting room.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. The Zoom waiting room is not very helpful in this type of a contest thing. When Jessie was helping me learn, you know, because Jessie and Utah jumped into this before we did, like a week before I did, which was beautiful because she helped me, but she kept saying waiting room, and I kept on thinking she was talking about the Zoom waiting room, and I could not wrap my head around how to make that work. But so that's a great comment. So, okay. So what I want to do now then is I'm going to just show you, and I don't have a PowerPoint, I just have the actual walk through that, is I'm going to show you how to do Canvas. And I think this is like what is important, that I hope as educators that we do get as many people trained on how to do Canvas as possible, so that if kids in your county have questions, that they feel like they could call you and say, okay, Megan, I'm really having a hard time getting into my Canvas account. How can I do that? During Showcase Showdown, like we haven't talked about that a lot at the state office, but I guess I hope that we can say, here's a list of people that understand Canvas, and you could get a hold of any one of those. Because if we only have one point person that's answering questions and I'm on the phone, there's 5 other people out here waiting that need help. So as we move along, I don't know that that will be every 4-H educator, or if we're just gonna have like a phone tree, does that make sense, of everybody that understands at least how to get in there, that I know even though I'm from UNT County, I could call Megan as a help person and she can help me figure out why I can't or whatever. Does that make sense? So any of those people that, and even if you don't know Canvas now, like we can show you and you can learn it. It's not super hard to figure it out. So anyways, I know that there's quite a few that have jumped in. I mean, in terms of learning it, I know that like Megan's used it a ton. Do you know what I mean? In terms of, and your interns use it as a ton. So maybe their role would become a question, just a helpful tip line. I know that when I did the introduction thing for the EWC contest, I put my phone number and George's phone number on there because we wanted kids to have that in front of them during the contest in case they needed help. And we did get phone calls like all the time. So I think that those are important little backdoor things that help. So let me just get that pulled up really quick and then we'll walk through there. If you know Canvas, like Megan, you know Canvas really well. As I go through this, because it's not screenshot or anything, we're going to do it live, is if I forget something, just jump in and help me. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so how you get into Canvas is, this is, everybody can see this. Can you see my screen? This is just the UW web page, and down here at the bottom is under Learn With Us is where they're going to get into Canvas. If they want to build a Canvas account for the first time, they click on this extension online courses. If they already have built an account under that email, then they go under WyoLearn login, the second thing here, and that's how they get back in. I would say this is the biggest challenge that people are having, is that a couple things. I think maybe parents had taken a Master Gardener account or a program, or I know Jeremiah did some wind energy things, or anything ever that has been done through Canvas for the University of Wyoming, you build a Canvas account and it stays there. So if anybody's ever used your email for absolutely anything, or the email they already have an account built. And that's, I think, the trouble that we're running into, that they'll click on here under extension online courses, want to build an account when their email address has already been used for something else. And they might not even know. Like finally, I had some kids that had parents that did Master Gardeners, and then we figured out why they couldn't get on there. So I think that's the number one. If I was going to click under WyoLearn, because I already had an account, I click on that, and then it's just a login screen. And so this is mine. And then what happens is I log in, and then it shows me the modules or the courses that I've enrolled in. So in this example, this is the courses that I'm like over top of. So the animal science one is our 1009 class. The Wyoming Virtual Contest is the one that we used for EWC and all the dog virtual stuff. For Sweetwater County, we started a new one because what we learned is that under Wyoming 4-H Virtual Contest is that we have, I don't even know, 400 or 500 kids in there because we've been using the same one since the 1st of April. So all the practice things we did for Dog Skill-a-thon, all the practice livestock judging, all of those. So then when we actually did the EWC contest, we were using the same one, and it became ultra challenging to sort through and try to find kids. So as we think forward, and I think this is input from all of you guys, as we think forward, and this is really a question for us as a state that we need to decide for the multiple programs, is I almost wonder if we should have one that says Showcase Showdown produce judging, and the kid enrolls in produce judging, and Showcase Showdown extempt, and they would enroll in extempt, or what extempt you might not need a canvas, and that's a bad example, but livestock skill-a-thon or horse apology. So they'd have separate courses so that when I'm managing one of them, I don't mess up whatever, somebody that's doing something different. Does that make sense? So I think those are things that we probably need to have a conversation about and make a decision as a state. If we could just have one course that says Showcase Showdown, but then within that is when people are working in there, I think there's an ability to make errors or something. I don't know, I just think it's cleaner. So if I go under then this Wyoming 4-H Virtual Contest, if I click on here, what this does is then it brings up modules, and we call them modules in here because that's what the computer language is modules, is that you can build modules within here. So I have a module called Practice EW Contest, then I have the Lancer Judging Jamboree, and then I have Dog Skill-a-thon, Livestock Skill-a-thon. Those are all from that thing that I did in April. So once you build a module, they don't go away, they stay in here. What it does do is I have the ability to turn them on and turn them off, and that's what makes this beautiful and work, is this little thing that says publish right here, is if I click publish, it becomes green, and that means that somebody that's enrolled in the class can go in there and see all these classes now. If I unpublish it, that means that if Mary Louise went in there, that she wouldn't be able to see that class. So that's how the judging contest works on the back end, is that we go into one like this class 1 Market Hog, and I turn it on and I have it published, and so people can see it. If I unpublish it, then they can't see it, type of a thing. So that's how we turn them on and off, so that people can see the class for their 15 minutes and turn them off, so that they don't get to come on 2 hours and later and help. We did learn at the EWC contest is, once again, we had a couple people doing too many jobs. So Georgia was in charge of this, to turn classes on and turn classes off. Then she became a problem solver with the officials. And so then what happened was is she didn't get them all turned off. So then we had kids that jumped in the middle of the contest after the contest had already been on for an hour, and was able to see part of the classes, but not the ones that had been turned off. So then we couldn't figure out why they didn't have scores. Anyways, after muddling through that, we figured out that why is because we forgot to turn them off. So, but that's a beautiful thing. So during, if you could visualize Livestock Skill-a-thon, we can go in here and have all of this built in advance, right? So we could have a station for cattle, a station for sheep, a station for pigs, a station for equipment, and it's all built and ready to go. And the kids go in there and they can't see anything until whoever's operating it says publish, then it's turned on and they can see it for however much of time we want it on, and you hit unpublish and they can no longer see it. The beautiful thing it does is it date stamps it, so that when a kid enters the module, we know when they entered it, how long they were in the module, and when they get out. So I could tell you on the Dog Skill-a-thon, for example, that we did, some kids did that contest in 5 minutes and some kids took an hour. So probably the hour kids were what, looking up questions? The 5 minutes kids were not. Like, it's true, right? Like, we kind of know that. And we knew that was open book, so it didn't matter. But that's the beautiful advantage of using Canvas, I think, versus using some other platforms like Google Docs and things like that. I really did go back to see if we should jump ship and do a different platform. But there's things in here that you can't do in Google Docs. Like, we can't turn it on and turn it off, right? In Canvas, we can. If I go into this Market Hog class, I'll just show you this is really quick, is that in here is where you could build your, it's like a quiz, they call it a quiz, but this is where you build your questions. So if we were doing Horsapology, and this is where they're going to take their test, right, is we would just have the questions in here, and it scores it for you if it can. If it's multiple choice, true, false, it'll score it. If not, you have to hand score it. But this is where the kids went in and seen their class. This is the YouTube link. If I click on this link, it's going to bring up that Market Pig class. And then this is where they enter their placing right down here in this little box. Is I'd enter that I place it as a K or whatever it is. So that's the other beautiful part, is that it's all enclosed in one thing, is that they click on the link, they get to watch it, and they enter the placing all in the same location. Jessie in Utah, I talked to her again last week a lot, is still using Google Docs because they don't have Canvas, like it's not an option at their university. So she sends out the links in Google Docs. Somebody on the back end turns the YouTube links on and off, so they control the time that way. And then they're entering their placements in something called Qualtrics, which is another program. So in that case, we have kids going to Google Docs to find a link, then they have to go to a different program to enter it in Qualtrics. One advantage of being in Canvas is they can get in here, find the link, and enter their placing all in the same like little platform. If we can ever just get them to figure out how to get into here, that's the biggest challenge, right? So, so you guys that are helping with contest on the back side is, for Shaylee, for example, who's gonna help with Livestock Skillathon, is we'll get those assigned out, and if, for example, Shaylee's gonna do breeds, then she can go in here and build her modules breeds, and it would be ready to go, and all we do is turn it on the day of the contest. So this is stuff that can be done in advance. So the EWC or the Sweetwater County contest for Saturday, all I have is a shell. I don't have a I don't have the contest built yet, so you wouldn't be able to see these modules in there. So questions about this part of it in terms of the beautiful things in here? Anybody have questions? No? Okay. Let me go back. Let me go back here. Let me just go back and see if it'll take me back where I want to be. Sorry, I clicked on all these links. Maybe it won't. Okay. So let me just give you it really quick. If I go into Sweetwater County right here, this shows up that there's nothing built because that's just a shell. So for you guys, if you want to build a Canvas account, like a shell like this Sweetwater County one, that's what Brittany Gross can do for you. And she can do it super easy. So I guess what I'm telling you is this can be used for lots of different things, not even like beyond COVID-19, is that you guys can go in here and build classes. And you call Brittany and she's absolutely amazing, like amazing. She can get it built in no time at all. And she can make it so there's multiple people that can control it. So for example, on Sweetwater County right now is that I'm listed as an instructor and George is listed as an instructor because George has been helping turn on classes and turn them off. But we could make it 5 people. Like I could go in there and have her add Emily or Mary Louise or Shaylee or Amber, whoever, and we could all be working in the same module, getting it prepared for the contest. It doesn't just have to be one person, which also is beautiful because it's a lot less work. So you just are listed as an instructor. Mary Louise, your comment about kids doing in advance is exactly right. I'm going to go this afternoon and build a practice class in the Sweetwater County one. And I'm going to send an invite to all the kids that are doing the contest this weekend and say, please go in to join Sweetwater County so that they go in there and they're already enrolled in the course and ready to go by Saturday. So we're not trying to do that in the morning. So I do think that's important that as we think through this is that even Hapology, we need to have a practice class in the Hapology module so that kids would go in and do their practice class and then they're ready to go the day of the contest or whatever it is. So that will become important, I think.
So also, so say like, okay, so the judging contest is Saturday. So Friday afternoon though, or say Friday at noon, you could go look and see, I've got these kids that are registered and then these kids that are in Canvas. And so there's 5 of them that haven't done Canvas yet. And so you can reach out to those 5 and say, hey, if you don't get this done by midnight tonight, you're not going to be able to participate tomorrow.
Yes. And I think for this, yes, 100%. That's what we didn't do. Like at the EWC contest, our plan was, so this is back to not enough bodies. Our plan was to do the practice thing that morning, and then we were going to cross-reference it to the reason order, right? And then we ran out of time and couldn't get that done. Like there wasn't enough people to do it. So Mary Louise, the ticket is to have the kids do that. So then you can even get them crossed off the reason order. So then the next morning you have a truer reason order. Do you know what I mean? Or even kids that show up for Showcase Showdown, if we go and say, you need to go do this practice thing for Livestock Skillathon, so that we know they're in there, they're signed up, and then they don't have it done, then we could get a hold of them on Friday and say, okay, your team hasn't logged in yet, you gotta go log on, and they could say, nope, I'm not gonna do the contest, so we would know not to worry about them.
Yeah.
So you are concretely right. That's a ticket to make this work and run much smoother than our 45 minutes of running late. That's, you know, I mean, that's all that matter of starting on time or not. So.
Well, and just knowing so that you're not waiting for somebody that's changed their mind.
Right, correct.
I mean, I realize that life happens, and you still may have those that have went and done all of that and then don't show up. So you're still waiting, but
right.
it's not putting those other kids that did what they were supposed to do behind.
Yeah, and usually behind because they're still building a Canvas account that morning, right? That will be a big old struggle. So I think you're right. So, okay. Any other questions here? I'm just going to take you one quick then, is I'm going to use Shaylee's email address on here, and I clicked on the first one that says extension courses, and it brings it up, and this is your options, and these are all the courses that are in extension right now. Like this is all the ongoing extension ones. If you guys see on here, the Sweetwater County one is not on here yet, but I have the shell, and that's because Brittany built me the shell, so I can get it ready, and then she publishes it, and then once she publishes it, it pops onto here, okay, just so you kind of know that path that happens. So this Wyoming virtual one is the one we've been working on, so I'm going to enroll in that today. So I click this class because this is the one I want to enroll in, and then it says, do you want to enroll? I say yes, so I click enroll, and then it's going to come up and ask for information, and Shaylee, I'm going to spell your name wrong, you better tell me how to spell it right.
I-L-Y.
I-L-Y, sorry.
Yep.
H-A-B-E-R-G-E-R,
And then,
is that right?
no, B-A-R.
B-E-R, tell me
No,
again.
A-R. G-E-R.
Okay, darn it.
I'm
Okay.
sorry.
No, exactly, like how is that, right? And then this is her email. Make sure I get it right, Shaylee. uwyo.edu.
Yep,
Is that
yep.
correct? And then her county is Lincoln. And then she agrees to the terms, and she's not a robot. And then she enrolls in the course. So what happens now, it works, right? Oh, I spelled Lincoln wrong. How's that? How about that? Try again. Enroll in the course. It's going to come up and say, you're almost there. It sends an email. So this is the steps that have to be taken in advance. It's back to what Mary Louise says the kid's trying to do it that morning, right? So then they go and enroll. But now Shaylee, in your email, she should have an email account where she can confirm that she wants to enroll in that class. And she's setting a password. It's going to ask her all that stuff. And she's going to set a password in there.
Dawn, I am going to throw this out there. I think you are exactly correct that enroll in a course and that login thing is a little trippy. And I'm not going to throw Emily Haver under the bus, but I'm going to throw Emily Haver under the bus to make one of those great how-to pages about how, like, step one, enroll on this screen.
I have it already, just so you know, I've already created it. So I already have it as a how-to. This is how you enroll. This is how you re-log in. And just so you know, like I sent it out, like at EWC, I said, okay, here it is. Like go back. If you've enrolled, then this is how you're going to get back in the course. And honestly, Megan, like, and I feel like I'm throwing people under the bus. And so I don't mean that to be negative, but seriously, that morning I had people calling, I don't know how to do this. I'm like, do you have the instruction sheet? Yes. I said, well, look at the pictures, because I took screenshots of the pictures and put it in there. So it's step by step. And honestly, like I had one lady that says, I just don't understand this. And I'm like, okay, go to the extension page. Do you see the picture on the bottom? Yeah. And then finally, like halfway through, she's like, oh, I just follow these pictures. I'm like, oh yeah, like, I don't mean that bad, you know what I mean? But that really is a challenge. So one of the things that Jessie did suggest, Jessie Hadfield, like when I talked to her last week, and I think this is what we are gonna do, is she's right, is she said, Dawn, I don't know if the instruction sheet is enough because some people cannot read and follow directions. And that's not meant to be mean, that's realistic. So she really thinks that we need to send or do a clip, a video clip, a 30-second video clip that says, okay, I want to enroll, how do I enroll? So I'm gonna need volunteers to help me with that because we're gonna do that. Does that make sense? Is record you doing it. We're gonna do a YouTube, this is how you enroll, and this is how you re-enroll type of a thing with a little instruction, sharing the screen type of a thing, so that then we could send that out to people that says, this is how you enroll, this is how you log in, right? Like, and using those words, like you said, enroll versus log in, because I think that's the difference maybe that, I don't know, but you are right. I don't even know. I don't know how to make it clearer, but maybe the video, I thought it was a great idea. When Jesse said that, I'm like, oh yeah, that's probably right. And I don't mean that mean some people I just don't think to follow instructions. So yeah. Okay, so Shaylee, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna let you be co-host so that you can share your screen if you're okay with that. And then we're gonna let you just log in and share your screen so then you can go to the next step if you're good with that.
Okay.
So if you just
Well,
go
there
to
you
the
go, Emily.
go to the UW extension.
So I'm in my module right now.
Okay, so just share your screen.
Did it do it?
Did not share. There you go, you're coming. Okay, beautiful. So this is what it looks like right now for her because of the fact that there's nothing live, right? So this is a little bit of the challenge that we had is when kids went in there, there wasn't anything built, so then they think they're wrong as well. So that's back to kind of like the tips or the tricks, I guess, is that when this is, like right now they could go in here and they don't see anything. It's almost like we should have a module on here that says, introduce yourself, right? So that there's something on there so they feel like they have something to do. Because a lot of kids would go to where Shaylee is right here and then they're like, this doesn't work. And it's like, well, the contest isn't live yet. It shouldn't work yet, right? But so even as we think of the state contest and we think about entering stuff in here, you know, for Livestock Skillathon, we should have just an introduce yourself module. So then they would do the introduce yourself module and then they feel like they have something to do. So I think those are the kind of the backdoor things that because we don't want it to be live, but yet they feel like they're in the wrong place. So Shaylee, if you then like get out of here, can you get out of here, like log all the way back out and then just go back in on the extension page and log back in?
You could even have like, Brittany was really impressed with me, Dawn, because I figured out how to make like a front screen or a home screen or something in my first crack at it, but I didn't know what I was doing. So I don't know that that's amazing. But even like for one of them, I just made like a home page, kind of like you're in the right spot. Nothing's happening, but here you are.
That's a great idea. That's a really good idea. I hadn't even really thought about that. I have one of those for animal science, right? On our animal science class one, but I didn't even think about that. That's a great idea. So we can do the video clips and the homepage. I think that's great. So this is Shaylee's screen. So right now you're just seeing that she's enrolled in the Wyoming 4-H virtual contest. So if she was going to enroll in the Sweetwater one, then she'd have another little thing that says Sweetwater, which is not live yet, but anyways, and then if she clicks in there, Shaylee, just click in there under Wyoming thing. If she clicks on there, then it takes her just there, and that's where she would see her modules and be ready to go. Okay, you can stop sharing. Thanks, Shaylee.